A mate comes up to you, you ask them how they're doing, they turn around to you and say, I'm fucked. How prepared do you feel for this conversation? I'd argue not many people think long and hard about how they'd respond in this situation. And I'll share a story with you just to contextualise all of this. By the time I had seen my first client as an intern psychologist, I'd been at university for 5 years. I'd written 50 plus essays. I'd read through countless textbooks. You'd think by the time that the client walked through the door and I was on the tools, I'd be ready for almost anything. Fast forward to my first client in the army, and I remember this very clearly. It was a warrant officer, an experienced soldier, a seasoned professional, a tough bloke, no bullshit approach. Anyway, he sat down in front of me and I asked him what I thought was a pretty reasonable opening question. How's your deployment? And he looked at me, dead serious, and he said, pretty fucked. And I remember in that moment, almost freezing, filled with a bit of anxiety, a bit of panic. And I thought, what the hell do I say to that? It's not like I could reach for one of my textbooks and flick to the chapter on deployments. I felt kind of stuck in that moment. I had all this theoretical knowledge, but applying it in that moment, I was ill prepared. And I think a lot of people in society, they might think about approaching people and asking them how they're doing, but how prepared are people really to respond to that, oh, I'm fucked moment? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take you through a 5-step process. So if you're encountered with the situation of someone struggling, you know how better to respond. Step 1, you notice someone struggling. I encourage you to approach the person and to self-regulate a little bit. Take a deep breath, remind yourself to relax, calm the farm a little bit. Even if you're not feeling overly calm, fake it until you make it. Role model calm and composed, because what it can do, if you're encountering someone that's highly distressed and you meet them at a level of distress that is lower than theirs, it can actually bring their level of distress down somewhat. So when I'm approaching someone, I'm constantly telling myself, Luke, role model calm and composed. Take a deep breath, relax, role model calm and composed. Step 2, ask a good open-ended question. And I'll tell you a pretty straightforward open-ended question to kickstart a conversation. How are you? The problem is, how are you or how you going is almost like a handshake in today's world. When you ask someone, how are you? It almost feels like a g'day. And what we typically get back from people in Australian culture is, she's all right, mate, or I'm all good, or I'm fine. If you're still concerned about the person and you're not satisfied with that type of response, ask the same question twice. Asking the same question twice can break the pattern of usual everyday conversation, and it's not always going to work, but it can enhance the chances of a more open dialogue. And I'll show you how this might play out in the real world. So you're worried about someone, you go up to them. Hey Charlie, how you going? Charlie's likely to respond with, I'm all good, mate. Again, if you're not satisfied with that response, hey Charlie, I noticed that you don't seem like yourself lately, mate. How you really going? I know this seems overly simplistic, but again, it breaks the pattern of usual everyday conversation and enhances the chances of a more open dialogue. So ask the same question twice. Step 3, the person turns around to you and says that they're struggling. What are you going to do? I can tell you what you might experience. Your heart rate might go up. It's pretty normal. You might freeze initially. Pretty normal. Your mind might go blank for a moment. That's also pretty normal. Take another deep breath. Remind yourself to relax. Remember, role model calm and composed, and then lean on something that you've learned and practice using the FIDO mnemonic acronym, whatever you want to call it. FIDO, F-I-D-O, is a guide that I'd now like to take you through. What does FIDO stand for? The F, frequency. You might say, how often have you been feeling like this? The I stands for intensity. You mentioned you're having a rough time. How rough is all of this? The D stands for duration. How long has this all been going on for you? And the O stands for onset. What kick-started all of this for you? Or can you pinpoint when things started to unravel for you? These are some basic questions, and they might seem really, really basic, but if you learn them and practice them, they can prevent that deer in the headlights, oh shit moment. Now, importantly, when it comes to FIDO, I know FIDO sounds a little clinical. Maybe some of you are thinking it's kind of a lame acronym, but it doesn't need to be treated clinically. You're not trying to conduct a clinical assessment, so if you feel like using one of the letters to help guide the conversation, use one of the letters. If you feel like using all of them or two of them, that's completely fine. Use them in random orders, whatever works for you, but it is a guide that you can lean on in the event that you have literally nothing to say to the individual. Step 4, keeping the conversation going. Here's a couple of other things that you might consider, and in counselling, in psychology, we call these things encouragers, because they encourage people to keep on talking. So you might consider things like, tell me a bit more about that. Or they might say something and you might say, oh, and then what happened? Oh, wow, and then what? Anything else that you'd like to share with me? These can be great questions just to keep the conversation rolling forward, and so that you can gather more information, because this part of the process really is about information gathering. You're gathering information, you're not there to problem solve at this point in time. And I think it really is important that you understand that component. We are searching for information. And I think a good thing to think about, and this is what I do, I try to get out of my head when I'm having potentially tough conversations, and I try to lean in with curiosity, because at the end of the day, most people are actually pretty interesting. Not everyone is super interesting, but if you lean in and try and open up people and put yourself in their shoes, it can be really interesting to hear their perspective, to understand what makes them tick, to understand their perspective. So lean in, get curious. Another thing, if you're in the position where someone has opted to open up to you, what a great privilege. They're providing you with this opportunity to have a window into their lives, a window into something extremely vulnerable and personal to them. So I don't think we should take that for granted. And step 5, don't try to fix people. When someone opens up to you, don't throw out solutions immediately. What a lot of people tend to do, and I think this comes from a place of anxiety. They want the conversation to be over quickly, or they're not sure how to handle the conversation, or let's face it, a lot of us are good people, and when we see someone in distress, we don't like it, so we want to fix their distress. But this can be really counterproductive. If you're throwing out solutions way too early in a conversation, they're probably solutions to surface level problems. You're not actually giving the person time to express what's at the core of their issue. And you know what else? It can be fucking annoying if you're in distress and someone's just throwing solutions at you. They'll probably tune out and they'll probably be thinking, if only it was that bloody simple. That said, if after implementing FIDO or your own variation of FIDO, you feel like you've got a good read of what's going on, if you feel like you've gathered enough information, or if the conversation's running a little dry, what you can actually do to wrap up the conversation is ask the person what they need. Don't tell them what they need, ask the person what they need. You might say something like, thanks so much for sharing all of that with me. How can I best support you right now? Would you like to keep venting? Would you like my perspective on what's going on? Do you want me to offer some possible solutions? Again, seek permission instead of just jamming things down people's throats. At the end of the day, if you follow the basic process outlined in this video, ask some okay questions. They don't have to be perfect. You can stumble and fumble your way through this stuff. And if you genuinely listen to people, and I know this might sound a little woo-woo, a little airy-fairy, but it can almost be a little bit magical. People often come up with their own solutions. But if you're the one doing all the talking, if you're the one throwing out solutions, you can deny people golden opportunities to think through things, to come up with their own solutions. And that can be disempowering. When we're having mental health conversations, when we're trying to support people, we can't underestimate the power of social support. I'm certainly not suggesting that, but in order for people to improve, at the end of the day, they've got to get back in the driver's seat of their own life. So when we're having mental health conversations, it's all about empowering people, not disempowering them. That's a wrap for today. Good luck to you all starting and continuing some important conversations, some potentially life-altering conversations. Stay tuned for more videos where we'll teach you some more practical skills to manage potentially challenging situations in your life, some challenging mental health conversations, and above all, please remember that I ain't weak to speak.